We start with a bunch of randos dropping dead and absolute havoc going on out in the streets, as geophysics expert Dr. Josh Keyes and French scientist Sergei Levesque are brought over to DC by the military to figure out what the frig is going on already. And apparently, bizarre spates of electronic interference has caused these poor fuckers' pacemakers to stop working. And worse, similar strange incidents are now happening all over the globe, as just like that time I asked a group of ladies for directions whilst dressed up as Jack the Ripper on Halloween, a bunch of birds start going mental in London. And eventually, Dr. Keyes soon works out that Earth's magnetic field is going super wonky, bro. Which is also confirmed by NASA pilots Commander Iverson and Major Beck Childs, whose shuttle is promptly knocked off their return trajectory and soon ends up crash landing in the LA River. Anyway, Keyes then tells brilliant yet smugly arrogant Dr. Konrad Zimsky all about what he's found, whilst brilliant NASA co-pilot Major Beck, who's also apparently the youngest ever person in space because she's totally brilliant, is reassigned to a special project after Dr. Keyes informs the military top brass that everyone on Earth will be totally dead within a year.
No way!
Yes way. Because turns out the planet is totally constipated and the core itself has stalled and stopped spinning, which has led to the Earth's magnetic field failing worse than Charlie Sheen's immune system. And the longer it goes on, the worse things are going to get, other than just a bunch of birds flying into windows and stuff. Because in 3 months there'll be total chaos, and within a year, the world will be burning worse than them Cali fires last month. And before you can say, I think Grumpy Thunberg just went to fucking knickers, the military general asks what the hell they can do about it, cause usually when you stall your car, you can just press the clutch down and restart it manually. So he inquires as to whether it's maybe potentially possible to restart an entire fucking red hot mini planet like that maybe. But naturally, Keyes just scoffs and says lol, no chance mate, and even if we could, there ain't no way to get down there and shit. But luckily, that Zimsky bloke knows a weird black fella what lives out in the desert because reasons, as Dr. Braz Brazelton, and yes that is his name in this film, first moans about how Dr. Zimsky has a right bloody nerve to come to him for help 20 years after they fell out due to him nicking his research and then claiming credit for it. Liberties! But Zimsky just says stop crying about a white man taking advantage of black labour because that shit's been going on in this country for centuries mate. Now stop whining about reparations like a little bitch and show us your fancy new tunnelling tech already. And indeed, after showing off his fancy new tunnelling tech already, mainly by vandalising innocent rocks, they realise they may now have a way down into the Earth's core, given his fused giant fuck-off lasers with high-frequency pulse resonance ultrasonics. Or some shit. And in addition to this laser-based high-speed drilling array thing, he's also developed a new material called unobtainium. A BS fictional material that can convert extreme heat into electricity, as well as pressure into strength to reinforce its energy and structural integrity. So theoretically, the hotter and deeper it goes, the stronger it gets. Because science, bro. And after they ask him how long it would take to make this prototype block into a proper ship, he jokingly says about 10 years and $15 billion dues. And hilariously, the military chief just says,
"Will you take a check?"
What?
Elsewhere, the feds unexpectedly turn up at a local hacker's gaff. So naturally, he promptly races to purge all his porn drives, and even microwaves his old DVD copies of Edward Penis Hands and Sperms of Endearment. Was some shit. Apparently, he calls himself Rat, and he starts to worry that the feds might be out to bump him off now he's committed over 64 cyber offences, and then just randomly says that he don't want to die a virgin. Not a joke.
You guys aren't here to whack me, are you? Because I was really hoping to have sex before that happened.
Okay.
But turns out they just want his help, and to use his special hacking talents in order to control the flow of online information of the top secret project, and also to prevent the truth that the world's literally ending from leaking out onto the net. But he just scoffs, because he reckons nobody controls the internet. Well, not unless you're a Google employee what can bury inconvenient search results faster than Hillary Clinton can bury fucking bodies. Anyway, later, they all prepared to tell the world's leading scientists and engineers all about what's really going on. And Zimsky just can't believe the military chiefs has made Dr. Keyes a lead scientist for the mission, and naturally moans that he's way more qualified to do it. But after getting bollocked about something mysterious called destiny, and worryingly asking about whether it could have caused the problem in the first place, he soon shuts up, before the main crew all properly meet one another properly. As Dr. Baz designed the ship, what even includes its own mini nuclear reactor in its engine, Dr. Zimsky, who knows the planet real good and soon he'll know it inside out, Dr. Levesque, the Frenchie who designed the weapon detonation system, and also Dr. Keyes, who's such a genius he can't even tie his own tie, built the navigation system along with the help of that rat-faced cyber-boffin fella. And they're all then introduced to pilots Beck and Iverson, as she says she'll totally tie his tie for him like a total cuck, because she's totally brilliant and stuff. Anyway, then we cut to a montage, as Keyes details via narration how over the next 3 months, their super genius plan to restart the Earth's core is simply just to nuke it into oblivion, given most of the team is made up of trigger-happy Americans.
Nice.
And rather worryingly, the ship itself is divided up into 6 compartments and is designed to auto-seal off and eject any that get damaged in order to prevent compromising the entire ship and mission. And before you can say, this'll end well, the brilliant Major Beck, who's just bloody brilliant at everything, soon ends up fixing Keyes' deep Earth scanning machine and totally undermines his lifelong expertise by just being naturally brilliant at everything. Whilst the chiefs go on to say how in order to prevent mass panic, they need to lie through their teeth to the public and totally gaslight them into thinking that the fuck ton of deadly earthquakes and lightning storms about to happen is just totally normal, bro. And have now given the rat-faced virgin fella the authority and power to push online disinformation and totally censor any naughty conspiracy theorists who may end up getting too close to the truth and generally just talking about things they don't like. Yes, exactly like a current day Reddit mod on fucking steroids, son. After they constantly fail multiple times to get anywhere near the core in their training simulator, NASA Commander Iverson pays a visit to a stressed out Beck, who can't really believe they're about to journey to the centre of the Earth in 3 months' time, because although she's brilliant at everything, she's totally seen that movie, and it took 15 years for Brendan Fraser's career to recover from that mission. And trying to calm her nerves, he says that her real problem is that she's too bloody good at everything for her own good, and making men look like total mugs ain't going to be enough to save her down there. And he then finishes the world's shittest pep talk by stating that you won't be a true leader till you've taken an L and made a tough decision and shit. But suddenly, the weather gets so bad in Rome that it's out here rudely destroying all of Italy's landmarks with static discharges of super lightning, which also makes the Colosseum flat out explode, because reasons. So naturally, they need to pull their finger out and get going pronto. And after the commander tells them that this is it and there ain't going to be any glory or reward if they somehow make it back from this utterly mental mission to the centre of the planet, which is as hot as the sun itself, they soon choose to do a water launch at the Mariana Trench, where the crust is totally thinner, but on the downside, there's lots of seismic activity.
This isn't going to end well.
Then they get serenaded by whales on the way down, given their ship's resonant subsonics means they're technically singing to them. But luckily, they fire up the fancy super lasers and manage to get through the mantle just in the nick of time, which kinda looks like a sperm entering an egg to me. And what would kind of make sense, given their mission is to create a big bang and totally bring life to a dead core. Anyway, they then begin their journey to the centre of the Earth, and soon pass through the crust and then on through the mantle, where it'll then take another 24 hours to the core. Which sounds super long and tedious to be fair, but luckily, we then cut to 12 hours later, as everything seems to be going pretty swell, until they fly into a pocket of empty space and promptly crash land into a realm of crystals and shit. And before you can say, ain't this where that Superman fella came from? They realise that the lasers are jammed and they need to get outside to fix it manually, because plot hurdle, bro. So Braz gets on with trying to cut away the debris, but unfortunately, a giant fountain of magma starts pouring in from the hole they just came through. And after Keyes totally faints after using his own oxygen supply to fix up Braz's broken machine what he needed to clear the jam, Commander Iverson congratulates them all on a job well done after they indeed clear said jam, and says they all got well lucky on that one, and hilariously proceeds to get an instant dose of cosmic irony when a molten piece of rock falls through his noggin and then knocks him stone dead into the lava. No! So they drag Keyes' unconscious ass back inside and get their heck out of Dodge. And after they do some more bonding, now the brilliant Beck has been promoted to main pilot by sheer default, we cut to the second day of the mission, where they soon run into another problem, now in the form of diamonds the size of Cape fucking Cod, which naturally ends up breaching the rear compartment and triggering the auto-eject sequence.
Oh shit, not good.
Also naturally, the dopey Frenchman then runs back in to retrieve the detonation timers for the nuclear charges, and also a bloody small picture book of his children's drawings.
Really?
And after getting his dopey ass inevitably trapped, Keyes then desperately begs Major Beck to manually override the lockdown. But after remembering how her mentor Commander Iverson once told her that she ain't ever gonna be a proper respected leader if she don't take responsibility and make tough choices, she decides to be totally based and totally let Frenchie take one for the team, well, rather than compromise the ship and mission itself. And he promptly gets his face squashed flatter than, yep, you guessed it, flatter than Prince Elrond's face. And he then totally bollocks her for squashing a small Frenchman when all she had to do was push a button so he could have tried to save the clearly doomed bloke whose kids can't draw for shit. And then makes her feel even worse by saying that he'd totally never make a decision that cold and savage. Anyway, after he calms down a bit, the team breaches the molten core and probably realises that it's much less dense than first anticipated, and thus throwing off their calculations on restarting the blasted thing. Because now the 1,000 megatons of nuclear warheads just ain't gonna cut it, bro. And will now be more limp and ineffective than the previous POTUS negotiating World War III with Iran.
I'll lead an effective strategy to mobilise true international effort to pressure.
So naturally, the cowardly and arrogant Dr. Zimsky totally decides to cuck out, given 2 of their mates are dead and their one plan to restart the core is now DOA. So he tells Beck to turn back home and then radios the surface to initiate their Plan B contingency plan, which is that mysterious Destiny thing what they were talking about earlier. Turns out it's a top secret device called Destiny, which is here spelled with an I, and stands for Deep Earth Seismic Trigger Initiative. And not like I initially thought, disastrous earth-shattering tectonic insanity. Keyes and co then discover that Zimsky has created a giant fuck-off weaponised earthquake machine, given the military were paranoid that their enemies would make one first. And in a shocking twist, what no one could ever see coming. Turns out the super secret trigger happy paranoid Americans were the ones what accidentally caused the core to stop rotating in the first place after they first tried to test their doomsday weapon, and all this was thus all their bloody fault all along. So the military chief reluctantly initiates startup procedures for the device what killed the fucking planet in the first place. As Keyes warns that if they indeed do this again, then all volcanoes on Earth will blow and earthquakes will tear the planet apart. So naturally, he does some more begging, and this time for more time, so they can carry on with the plan and somehow improvise a method on the fly to somehow increase the power of the nukes they've hauled all the way down here already. But the chief just says no way, bruv, because I can't risk you lot failing again, given you lot have already failed at everything and got 2 people killed, and says he's going to fire it ASAP, so you all better get out of there pronto. And naturally, Zimsky is a total meltdown about possibly dying 3,000 miles below the Earth's surface without his consent, and so also naturally, the token black man soon resorts to violence to solve all their problems and finally shuts him up for a bit.
Finally!
Meanwhile, up above, the sun's rays penetrate the weakening microgaps in the electromagnetic field, leading to a conveniently straight death beam of super intense heat scorching a bunch of innocent fishies, and also giving a specky gammon a rather nasty sunburn. Before then also frying the cables of the Golden Gate Bridge. And because no one knows what happened, given the rat boys censoring local conspiracy theorists online and presumably employing Chinese bot farms to reshape the narrative and totally discredit truthers on Twitter, the local news reporters just say,
"Yes, Claire, it's hard to believe that half of San Francisco is in ruins today."
Which is hilariously what I hear every time tourists return from vacationing there in current day.
Bruh.
Speaking of Ratface, he sends a secret message to Dr. Keyes asking how he can help, given that Destiny thing sounds well bad and shit. So he sends a secret message back imploring him to slow it down already, because they need to buy time to come up with another ludicrous plan that ain't got a fat chance in hell of ever possibly working. But luckily, that pussy old coward bloke wakes up and says if you're really serious about this mental shit, what indeed ain't got a fat chance in hell of working out well for anyone, then we need to hotwire the nukes and use each of the ejectable compartments to drop them in a specific sequence, so they can then detonate in waves and thus expand the blast radius. Because science, bro! But unfortunately, and because this is a lazy cliche-ridden disaster movie, another problem leads to them needing to detach the central compartment manually. But the only access is through a crawl space which is currently hotter than the sun, or Sydney Sweeney presenting SNL in a tight dress.
Oh, good lord!
So ship designer Braz Brazelton, and yes that is still his fucking name, totally does one of them self-sacrifice things and probably goes off to sabotage his own ship what cost $15 billion. But not before finally making amends with that arrogant honky bloke what stole all his work back in the day.
You're right. It is your ship.
but I wish to God it had been ours.
Yeah, but you still ain't getting reparations, bitch. And after successfully detaching the compartment and promptly getting crispy fried, Beck almost gives in and tries to press the override button to save him. But Keyes luckily stops the pussy old melt just in the nick of time, because he's now learned his lesson about the value of sacrifice and securing the safety of the mission at all costs, and is also probably a secret white supremacist, given he totally wanted to save the white man but is totally fine with letting this chocolate fella get roasted real good and proper.
Damn!
Anyway, after successfully ejecting some of the compartments, Hacker Boy Ratface diverts energy away from Destiny, thereby sabotaging the uber risky and super deadly contingency plan and buying our hero some more time, as the infuriated chief just can't believe the US military just got mugged off by a rat-faced virgin incel literally called Rat. Whilst back down below, they realise they need a bigger bomb and with almost 30% more plutonium, and promptly wonder where on earth they can get something like that, and especially at this time of night. And before you can say, maybe try www.realstrongplutoniumforyou.com, Zimski gets trapped underneath a massive bomb just as the compartment is due to detach, and the once arrogant cowardly bloke then reluctantly also does the self-sacrifice thing, and presumably just so his old mate don't get all the heroic credit and shit. Though helpfully uses his last words to tell Keyes that he can use the fuel rods from the ship's mini nuclear reactor engine to totally enhance the final bomb. Which he totally does, and although he gives himself a right raging ouchie by burning his hands real bad, they don't have any energy to get back now, and are currently more screwed than that Titan sub last year. But suddenly, he then realises that because the unobtainium converts heat to energy and the whole friggin' ship's hull is totally made out of the stuff, it's therefore like one giant solar panel, bro. So they can use the core to fire up the propellers and finally get the fuck out of this hellhole. Which they also totally do, although it's a bit of a dodgy trip back without the lasers. Then we cut to 16 hours later, as they've apparently been dodging rocks at ludicrous speeds for the entire night or some shit. And although they end up indeed escaping the core and the perils of the inner earth, they soon end up on the bottom of the seabed, and now without power or comms. And given no one's listening this far down or even knows they're alive, it looks like it's curtains for the man who hypocritically bollocks his colleagues for letting a chap die but then doing the exact same thing a few hours later. And also for the woman what loves undermining her own mission commander by fixing his wardrobe and deep earth scanning machines what he spent his entire life making. But luckily, Ratface soon realises that the whales what the rescue crew have randomly detected are picking up on the hull's ultrasonics and totally serenading the ship. And thus if you track where the whales are hanging out and circling, then you can totally find them pair of psycho wallies what systematically got all their mates killed and stuff.
Now that's what I'm talking about!
So the ship is then saved and promptly raised to the surface. And now with the core totally repaired and the weather back to normal again, the two remaining survivors just moan about how no one would ever know about their sacrifice or how they spent over 16 hours dodging rocks and smacking up annoying plagiarists. And we end with Ratface leaking the names and identities of all the fellas what sacrifice themselves to the climate gods in order to make the weather proper good again, and thereby doing his 65th cybercrime. Though these lot must be like a bunch of liberals, given he seemingly only leaked it to solely left-wing media networks like CNN and The Guardian and shit, and practically everyone but Fox News or the Daily Mail. And not even 4chan or bloody InfoWars for fuck's sake. And that's it. That's the movie. Though my favourite part was when the brilliant Beck, who's rather brilliant at everything, seemed to forget what to do with simple chewing gum before she was called into a super formal meeting with her military bosses at the start, and instead of spitting it out like a total normal person, simply did what most of my ex-girlfriends refused to do, and totally swallowed the sticky white stuff. Steady! But anyway, that's the plot and that's your lot. Considering that bell thing, so you don't miss any future recaps. Tell me if you like this flick in the comments if you have time, and I'll save the earth using redonkulous BS movie science what ain't got a basic grounding in scientific theory IRL with you in the next one.